Nostradamus called it the last August. Now we know why. Prophecy 2025. When the lion sun sets in the eighth sky, and fire dances where ice once lay, the world shall breathe its last summer. These haunting words, often attributed to Nostradamus, do not exist as a full line in his original quatrains, but are pieced together from obscure 16th century French texts and esoteric interpretations. Over time, this fragmented wisdom became known as the last August. For centuries, many dismissed it as poetic dread from a man haunted by plague and war. Yet now, in 2025, echoes of his warning ring louder than ever amid rising global tensions, climate extremes, and celestial signs aligning above us. Could this be a coincidence, or was he pointing to this exact moment in history? Welcome to The Journey of Wisdom, where ancient insight meets modern reality. Before we dive deeper into the meanings behind this prophecy, remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Is the last August a forgotten metaphor, or a message for the world we live in today? Number 1. Decoding the famous Quatrain. One of the most mysterious and widely discussed prophecies of Nostradamus lies in Century 10, Quatrain 72, a verse that, for decades, has puzzled historians, scholars, and truth-seekers alike. It reads, "The year 1999, 7th month, from the sky shall come a great king of terror, to bring back to life the great king of the Mongols. Before and after, Mars shall reign happily." At first glance, many interpreted this as a specific warning tied to July 1999. But this literal reading, though dramatic, may have missed the deeper and more symbolic nature of Nostradamus's cryptic words. It's important to remember that when Nostradamus wrote in the 1500s, time itself was not as fixed as we know it today. Europe was transitioning between the Julian and Gregorian calendars, and astrologers often used a system that began the year in March rather than January. This means that the 7th month could easily fall in August, not July, by modern reckoning, shifting the entire prophecy into a new frame. More importantly, many experts now believe this quatrain isn't tied to a single moment in history, but rather speaks to a recurring celestial pattern, one that reactivates whenever similar cosmic alignments reappear. This leads us to the unsettling realization that August 2025 may be such a moment. Not only does the planetary configuration mirror the eerie atmosphere described in the quatrain, but real-world events seem to echo its warnings. This month, the sky itself is drawing attention. A rare lunar eclipse will cast its shadow across multiple global hotspots, regions already brimming with tension and unrest. Meanwhile, the sun is flaring with unusual activity, and scientists have issued alerts about solar storms that could disrupt satellites, power grids, and communication systems, modern-day equivalents of a king of terror descending from the sky. It's as if the heavens themselves are stirring, mirroring Nostradamus's celestial warnings with uncanny precision. As if that weren't enough, military movements in space are escalating. Satellites are being repositioned. Defense systems are going on high alert. The term "Mars shall reign happily" takes on a double meaning here, both in the astrological sense, where Mars represents war and aggression, and in the literal sense of the red planet, which is increasingly at the center of space race strategies and orbital militarization. What makes this prophecy feel even more timely is the current state of global affairs. As military drills intensify in the Pacific and tensions simmer in Eastern Europe, many wonder whether we're witnessing the modern manifestation of Nostradamus's words, not as a single dramatic event, but as a convergence of omens that build quietly yet powerfully. And so, while the 1999 prediction faded without apocalyptic consequence, its spiritual successor may very well be unfolding before us right now. August 2025 is not just a month. It may be a signal, a reflection of ancient insight meeting modern chaos. The sky is stirring, and perhaps, just perhaps, the clock that Nostradamus warned of has finally begun to tick. Number 2. August's historical imprint. When we look back through the pages of history, August often appears not just as another month on the calendar, but as a turning point, an unsettling pause before a powerful shift, a moment when the world seems to hold its breath, only to exhale into a new and sometimes irreversible direction. Have you ever noticed how many world-changing events happened in August? Let's consider a few examples that aren't just footnotes, they're major historical disruptions. On August 24 in the year 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum under volcanic ash, freezing a way of life in time and offering future generations a haunting glimpse into the fragility of civilization. Fast forward to August 4, 1914, when Britain entered World War I, marking the beginning of a global conflict that would redraw borders, topple empires, and leave psychological scars still visible today. Then there's the horror of August 1945, when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed on the 6th and 9th. Events that didn't just end a war, they introduced the world to the nuclear age, forever altering our understanding of warfare and humanity's power to destroy itself. The pattern continues. On August 13, 1961, construction began on the Berlin Wall, literally and ideologically dividing East from West and symbolizing the tension of the Cold War. August 2, 1990, saw Iraq invade Kuwait, triggering the Gulf War and reshaping Middle Eastern geopolitics. Then, in August 1971, President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard specifically on August 15, ending the Bretton Woods system and ushering in a new era of floating currencies, globalization, and financial volatility that still shapes markets today. Most recently, on August 15, 2021, the Taliban retook Kabul, signaling the collapse of a 20-year effort in Afghanistan and forcing the world to once again question the nature of intervention, power, and consequence. When you connect the dots, it becomes clear that August often hosts moments that do more than disrupt, they redirect. So why does this keep happening in August? Some scholars and analysts suggest it's not mystical, but practical. In the Northern Hemisphere, August sits at a peculiar intersection. Summer is ending, yet decisions can no longer wait. Governments go into recess, markets thin out, people go on vacation, and yet behind the scenes, pressure is building. It's often a time when things have been simmering for months, and suddenly, the lid is blown off. Military campaigns historically began in late summer when weather conditions were optimal. Diplomats, heads of state, and generals used this time for bold moves while the rest of the world was distracted. Could it be that August isn't the cause, but rather the stage where these pressures reach their climax? And if so, what kind of stage are we stepping onto this year? Those who speak of the last August aren't necessarily predicting a single catastrophic event, but rather pointing to a recurring rhythm, an echo through time where August becomes the pivot between what was and what will be. When we revisit this idea in the context of Nostradamus and his cryptic references to August as a time of terror and transformation, it begins to feel less like a coincidence and more like a pattern, one that calls for attention, awareness, and reflection. So now, as we move through August 2025, it's worth asking yourself, what unresolved tensions are building around us? What decisions, personal, political, or global, are reaching their breaking point? And more importantly, what lessons from the past can help guide us through the storm? The true message here is not fear, but foresight. August teaches us that history is always in motion, and that critical moments often arrive when we least expect them. The events of the past are not just stories, they are warnings, guides, and mirrors. If we listen, if we prepare, and if we stay grounded in compassion and clarity, we may not stop the wave, but we can learn to ride it. That is the wisdom August offers. If you've watched up to this point, you're already diving deep into the mystery behind Nostradamus's chilling prophecy of the last August. Comment below with Prophecy 2025 to show you're ready to uncover the truth behind his warning. Don't click away, there's still more to reveal that might just change the way you see the year ahead. Stay until the end. The final clue might be the most important. Number 3. Astronomical Signals in August 2025. As we move deeper into the heart of this pivotal month, August 2025 reveals something far more than heat waves and holidays. There's an active sky above us, full of signals that many believe are more than just cosmic coincidence. So let's talk about what's happening up there right now and why it's caught the attention of both scientists and interpreters of ancient prophecy. This month began under the glow of the Sturgeon moon, which reached its full phase on August 9. Now, while some popular sources have claimed that this moon comes with a lunar eclipse, that's not entirely accurate. The eclipse that's stirring concern isn't in August, but it's close. It's a total lunar eclipse set for early September, on the nights of the 7th and 8th, and that detail matters more than you might think. Why? Because the timing creates a kind of cosmic tension. The great shadow that Nostradamus and other mystics often refer to may not fall on August itself, but it lingers nearby, casting an energetic presence that bookends this period of time, marking it as anything but ordinary. Now let's turn to the planetary alignments that are catching everyone's attention. NASA's own August Sky Guide mentions a beautiful and rare visual, a close meetup between Venus and Jupiter around August 11-12, which you can catch in the early morning skies if you're up before dawn. As the month continues, more planets start to join the scene. Saturn becomes especially prominent, while Uranus and Neptune, though harder to see with the naked eye, climb higher in the sky together, forming what astronomers often refer to as a planet parade. That phrase might sound poetic, but it has serious weight to those who track celestial symbolism. Astrologers, in particular, are paying attention to the deeper meaning behind these alignments, especially the way Saturn and Neptune draw near, while Uranus remains dynamically active in the mix. These outer planets, often linked to transformation, upheaval, and deep spiritual shifts, are said to signal collective turning points when they cluster this way. Whether or not you believe in astrology, you can't deny the unusual energy being stirred up by such a crowded and active sky. And if that weren't enough, all of this is happening during a peak moment in solar cycle 25. According to forecasts, the Sun is reaching its most active phase around mid-2025, and NASA already confirmed that we entered this solar maximum back in late 2024. What does that mean for us on Earth? It means a greater risk of solar storms, those intense bursts of energy from the Sun that can knock out satellites, mess with GPS, scramble radio communications, and even impact power grids. So even if the sky looks calm to the eye, it's anything but still. There's a kind of invisible tension in the atmosphere, a feeling that technology and nature are walking a tightrope together. So you might be wondering, why do these astronomical details matter so much to those who study Nostradamus and his prophecies? It's because his writings often connected rare sky patterns, especially eclipses and planetary alignments, to times of significant change, unrest, or awakening on Earth. The phrase "great shadow" has been interpreted as more than just poetic language. It's been seen as a warning, a signal from above that something is stirring below. And when you look at the build-up of this month, the full moon followed closely by a total eclipse, the rare alignment of major planets. and the sun's unstable behavior, it begins to resemble exactly the kind of moment Nostradamus warned about, not just because it's dramatic, but because it brings so many unusual elements together at once. What should we take from all this? Not fear, but awareness. The heavens don't command our fate, but they can mirror the energies we're living through. And whether you see prophecy as metaphor as warning, or warning as a call to prepare, August 2025 is a moment worth noticing. Ask yourself, are there patterns unfolding in your own life that mirror the tension and change we see in the skies? Could this be a time to reset, reflect, or prepare for something new? That's the wisdom offered by this moment, not that we should panic, but that we should pay attention. Because when the sky speaks, it's not just about stars, it's about the stories they've always told, and what they continue to remind us of. That change is coming, and clarity begins by looking up and listening closely. Number 4. Historical patterns and Nostradamus's lens. To understand why so many eyes have turned to Nostradamus in August 2025, we need to step back and look at how he viewed the world, not just as a seer, but as a physician and astrologer deeply rooted in a time when the heavens were seen as both a calendar and a code. He didn't claim that stars and planets caused events on Earth, but rather that when the sky presented something unusual, like a comet, eclipse, or rare planetary alignment, it often lined up with moments of deep change or crisis down here. In his tradition, the sky was like a cosmic clock, its unique formations offering symbolic markers that helped people understand the timing and meaning of the shifts they were living through. So, when we see today's interpreters drawing connections between celestial events and world affairs, it's not just superstition. It's part of a long-held belief that patterns in the sky often appear just before patterns on Earth unravel. They point to moments in history when the heavens seem to highlight major turning points. For example, the Great Comet of 1556 was visible across Europe and noted alongside major disasters in China, including devastating earthquakes. In 1588, a blood-red lunar eclipse lit up the sky during the military campaign season that ended with the Spanish Armada's failure, a defeat that reshaped the balance of power in Europe. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we find planetary alignments before World War I and an eerie total solar eclipse that crossed over Europe on August 19, 1939, just days before Germany invaded Poland and World War II began. Even the dramatic Perseid meteor showers of August 1990 came just as Iraq invaded Kuwait, setting off a chain of events that led to the Gulf War. These are more than curious footnotes. They're reminders of how often strange skies appear just as tensions peak and history shifts. Of course, a thoughtful perspective requires caution. Just because we can draw lines between sky events and historical crises doesn't mean the stars are pulling the strings. Eclipses, conjunctions, and meteor showers are part of the natural rhythm of the cosmos, and sometimes we see patterns simply because we're looking for them. But that's exactly where Nostradamus's style of prophecy becomes so compelling. He didn't offer precise predictions like weather reports. Instead, he invited us to pay attention to cycles, symbolism, and clustering. He showed us that meaning doesn't always come from exact dates, but from the convergence of unusual signs at times when human systems are already strained and near breaking. So when we look at August 2025, we're not just seeing another month, we're seeing a month loaded with the kind of celestial activity that Nostradamus often linked to major turning points. A full moon that lands close to a total lunar eclipse in early September, rare outer planet alignments that astrologers consider symbolically charged, and heightened solar activity that threatens to disrupt satellites and power systems, all unfolding while the world faces pressure from economic uncertainty, military tension, and climate extremes. So here's a question worth asking. When the sky and the headlines start echoing one another, does that mean something deeper is shifting beneath the surface? Whether you see these patterns as signs or just poetic timing, they remind us that we live in a world where everything is connected. Nostradamus may not have known the specifics of our modern challenges, but he understood that big changes often arrive not in isolation, but in clusters when nature, human behavior, and cosmic rhythms all align in ways that feel impossible to ignore. The real message here isn't about fear or blind belief, it's about awareness. It's a call to be more observant, more reflective, and more prepared when things around us start to feel unfamiliar. Because whether the sky is warning us or simply mirroring what's unfolding below, the responsibility is still ours to meet the moment with clarity and courage. Number 5. Geopolitical and economic backdrop. As we continue to explore why August 2025 holds such weight in the eyes of both historians and those who follow the prophetic threads left by Nostradamus, we must now look beyond the sky and into the tense, shifting ground of geopolitics and global economics. This isn't just about celestial patterns or symbolic interpretations. What's unfolding here on Earth paints a picture that's equally charged and volatile. Right now, US-China relations have reached their most delicate and dangerous point in years. The Taiwan Strait is no longer just a line on a map, but a simmering zone of confrontation. Throughout this month, Taiwan's defense ministry has reported a notable increase in Chinese military activity, frequent air and naval incursions that cross the median line, sending a clear message of sustained pressure. This pattern isn't new, but it has intensified, building off large-scale military exercises China conducted earlier in 2025. Meanwhile, on August 13, a sharp escalation occurred near Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, when China claimed it had driven away the USS Higgins, a US Navy destroyer operating under what the United States insists was a lawful freedom of navigation mission. This clash came on the heels of maritime run-ins involving Philippine vessels, highlighting how quickly routine military maneuvers can spiral into regional flashpoints. At the same time, the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to grind forward, shaping not only Eastern European security policies, but the broader strategic posture of NATO. It's no longer a conflict contained to two nations. It's a slow-moving quake, with aftershocks felt across the continent. Just this month, Lithuania formally requested NATO to reinforce its air defense systems following drone incursions from Belarus, a sign of how neighboring countries are no longer watching from the sidelines, but actively bracing for potential spillover. NATO's latest communiques repeat a consistent theme. Support for Kyiv is unwavering, and the alliance is evolving its deterrence posture for the long haul. This isn't just about defending borders, it's about adapting to a new era of prolonged, multi-front conflict where old assumptions no longer hold. Moving to the Middle East, a region long known for its layered complexity, we see yet another series of overlapping crises keeping the temperature high. Gaza ceasefire negotiations are underway in Cairo, but they coexist with ongoing Israeli military operations, a dual reality where diplomacy and warfare happen side by side. In Yemen, Houthi activity has intensified pressure on the already fragile Red Sea corridor, disrupting shipping and raising alarms among energy analysts. In Syria, renewed fighting in and around al-Suwaida threatens to undo fragile pockets of stability. Every one of these conflicts, whether active or frozen, adds to the global sense of unease and unpredictability. These tensions are mirrored on the seas, where global trade routes face rising risks. Security alerts have been issued for ships navigating the Red Sea, and shipping industry data confirms that many carriers are rerouting traffic to avoid these dangerous waters. In the South China Sea, the continued presence of rival naval patrols increases the risk of miscommunication or miscalculation, which could trigger far-reaching consequences in an already tense environment. And then we have the energy markets, another sensitive arena that both reflects and influences global dynamics. OPEC Plus has been adjusting output levels in recent meetings, carefully walking the line between supply, discipline, and market needs. Traders and governments alike are watching to see if further production cuts will be reversed during the group's key September meeting. These decisions don't just affect oil prices, they ripple into inflation trends, currency fluctuations, and public confidence in economic stability. In today's fragile world, energy policy has once again become a tool of geopolitical signaling. So what does all this mean for those trying to make sense of the last August? It tells us that this moment in time is not only marked by rare cosmic alignments, but is also deeply rooted in real-world patterns of instability and change. When Nostradamus spoke of omens and transitions, perhaps he wasn't just pointing to the stars. Perhaps he was warning us to pay closer attention to the world unfolding around us. The lesson here is not to panic, but to stay alert, informed, and connected to the broader currents shaping our time. August 2025 isn't just a chapter in a prophecy, it's a mirror reflecting the fragile balance of our modern world, and it asks each of us, are we truly prepared for the weight of what this moment might bring? Still watching? That means you feel it too, that this isn't just history, it's a warning. Type "awake" for 2025 in the comments if you believe the signs are unfolding now. Don't miss what's next. The last moments of this video could shift your entire perspective. Number 6. 3 leading hypotheses for the last August. As we bring together the threads of prophecy, celestial events, historical patterns, and global unrest, a key question rises to the surface. What exactly did Nostradamus mean by the last August? Scholars, researchers, and interpreters have offered several thoughtful hypotheses, each aiming to decode this phrase not as a single catastrophic event, but as a symbolic marker for a profound turning point. The first and perhaps most classically prophetic interpretation is what many call the celestial trigger. This view sees August not as a deadline, but as a cosmic cue, an inflection point where the sky signals shifts already brewing on Earth. According to this line of thinking, eclipses, planetary alignments, and heightened solar activity don't necessarily cause disasters, but they frame the energy of the time, much like a stage setting cues a scene before it unfolds. In this scenario, the last August is marked by space weather events, perhaps a powerful geomagnetic storm disrupting satellites or communication systems, or sudden military escalations that coincide with sky events, such as an eclipse or rare planetary alignment. The logic here isn't superstition, it's about timing and pattern recognition. Nostradamus often linked cosmic conditions with earthly turmoil, not because the stars cause conflict, but because they mirror the chaos we create below. However, if this August passes with calm skies, steady satellites, and no major geopolitical flare-ups despite all the cosmic drama, that would weaken this celestial hypothesis. Yet, as we've already seen, the skies of August 2025 are unusually active, making this theory hard to dismiss. Flowing naturally from there is the second hypothesis, economic turning point. This view interprets last, not in the sense of time running out, but in terms of a major economic system reaching its final stage. Some suggest this is the last August of the monetary world, as we've known it, a hinge moment where long-standing financial norms begin to fracture. Nostradamus used terms like gold, debt, and kings in symbolic ways, and when viewed through a modern lens, these can be read as references to central banks, sovereign financial systems, and the structures that uphold global markets. In this frame, August becomes the setting for events like a global liquidity crisis, the depegging of major currencies, a spike in oil or transport costs due to supply shocks, or a wave of defaults in over-leveraged sectors like real estate or corporate debt. If central banks are suddenly unable to stabilize markets, or if a sudden surge in inflation or fuel prices shakes consumer confidence and investment flows, we might look back and say August was the tipping point. On the other hand, if markets remain resilient, funding channels stay open, and energy prices fluctuate without breaking the system, this economic hypothesis would lose strength. But given the current fragility across global supply chains and energy corridors, especially with tension in regions like the Red Sea and South China Sea, the ingredients for such a scenario are already simmering. And finally, we come to the third and perhaps most sobering interpretation: seasons no longer the same. Here, the last August refers not to a political or financial threshold, but to a climate tipping point, marking the last time August behaves like we remember it. In this view, the shift is environmental and irreversible. Perhaps we are entering the final stages of climatic predictability, where Augusts are no longer just hot, but brutally unstable, with compound disasters like heat waves followed by flooding, wildfires wiping out entire regions, or droughts so prolonged that food systems begin to buckle. It might not be a single event, but a noticeable pattern that doesn't reverse with the next season, a new climate rhythm that forces major changes in agriculture, insurance, migration, and resource allocation. This version of the last August is not about a dramatic bang, but about a creeping shift that finally becomes undeniable. If, after this summer, we begin to see permanent changes in ocean circulation, glacier behavior, or weather seasonality, this hypothesis may be the most accurate of all. But if the chaos settles and we return to something close to the old normal, then perhaps we still have time before that final climate threshold is crossed. So, why do all three of these theories, celestial, economic, and environmental, circle around August? The answer lies in the natural clustering that this month seems to invite. August, historically, is a month of strategic moves and sudden changes. Militaries conduct drills, governments are on recess, markets are thin, and temperatures are high. It's a month when pressure builds quietly and is released unexpectedly. That's what makes August such a potent symbol in prophecy and analysis alike. In that sense, the last August isn't about one final day. It's about a threshold moment, a convergence of forces that reshape the rules of engagement, the flow of money, or even the cycle of the seasons. The deeper lesson here is not to obsess over a single interpretation, but to recognize the weight of overlapping fragilities. When cosmic signs, global tension, and environmental warnings arrive all at once, we're being asked not to panic, but to pay attention. Perhaps the last August is less about the end of the world and more about the end of our assumptions the moment we realize that life, as we've known it, is entering a new chapter. The real question is, how will we respond? Will we be swept up by fear and chaos, or will we move forward with awareness, resilience, and a willingness to adapt to a rapidly changing world? Number 7. The meaning of last August. Let's take a moment to step back and really ask ourselves, what does the last August actually mean? Is it about the final August on the calendar? It's deeper than that. This idea isn't pointing to a doomsday date circled in red. It's not warning us that there won't be another August. Instead, last August is a symbolic marker, a phrase that names the final August that still fits within the familiar framework we've come to accept as normal. That includes the rules we live by when it comes to power, economics, technology, and even the climate. What this concept suggests is that August 2025 may be the last time we experience this month under the current global operating system. After this, the assumptions we once relied on, the ones that made us feel stable or in control, might no longer apply. So the phrase "last August" isn't about ending the world. It's about a shift that separates the world we knew from the one we're now entering. And here's where it gets more real. This isn't necessarily about sudden destruction or instant collapse. The change is more subtle, but no less permanent. It's what experts call path dependence. That means once a system crosses certain lines, whether it's a change in global security strategies, a shift in how money flows and currencies work, the breakdown or rerouting of global supply chains, or climate systems entering unfamiliar patterns, it's nearly impossible to turn back without paying a high cost. So what does that actually look like in your life or mine? It's when governments can no longer rely on past agreements and must build new alliances from scratch. It's when financial institutions are forced to respond to new forms of stress they weren't built for. It's when weather no longer follows historical models and forces entire industries to rethink how they operate. And once those changes take root, they don't simply bounce back. There's no reset button. The last August, in this sense, becomes a lens, a way to help us focus on the month where these pressures all converge and quietly push us past a point of no return. It doesn't take a prophet to see that we're living in a time when many systems, political, economic, environmental, are under more strain than usual. So ask yourself, when do you know you've passed a turning point? Is it when everything explodes in a single moment, or is it when you look back and realize something changed and nothing has felt quite the same since? That's what this prophecy invites us to consider. It's not here to scare us, but to make us more aware of the shift while it's still happening before it becomes the new normal. So if the last August really is about a threshold, then maybe the most important question we can ask right now is, are we paying attention? Are we noticing the signs of change around us, not just in global headlines, but in how our daily lives feel more uncertain, more complex, and maybe more unstable than they used to be? And more importantly, are we preparing not for a disaster, but for a transformation? The message here is powerful, and it's not about fear. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that the systems we've depended on are evolving, and if we don't evolve with them, we may be left clinging to a version of the world that no longer exists. Nostradamus wasn't necessarily predicting the end of time. He may have been urging us to understand when our time changes and how we can respond with wisdom instead of panic. The lesson is this: every age reaches a moment where it must let go of the old to make way for what's next. Whether this August truly marks that moment isn't the point. The point is, the signs are all around us. Will we notice them, and will we act with clarity and courage rather than fear and denial? That is the question we must each answer for ourselves. So perhaps the last August isn't about the end of time, but about the end of a way of seeing, living, and expecting the world to remain unchanged. What matters now is not fear, but awareness. The world may not be ending, but it is transforming, and in that transformation lies both challenge and opportunity. If you've stayed with us until now, thank you. Your presence means you're one of the few who choose to pause, reflect, and seek clarity in a noisy and uncertain world. That's rare, and it's needed. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to The Journey of Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos, where we continue to explore ancient truths, modern shifts, and how to move through them with mindfulness and courage. Until next time, stay aware, stay grounded, and stay wise.